Are you comfortable talking about the Monkees?
It's a mixed bag. Sometimes I am. Actually, to tell you the truth, I'm not comfortable, but it's not because about talking about the Monkees. It's because I haven't had a cigarette since yesterday.
Do you want to light one up?
No.
Oh, you're trying to stop.
Well, I'm trying to put it off.
Right. Savor it a little longer.
Put off the next cigarette for, well, hopefully for a very long time, but just not smoke one right now.
Okay. How did you first hear about the Monkees auditions?
Stephen Stills called me and said, go try out.
Had he auditioned?
I don't know whether he'd auditioned exactly or whether he had just met one of the producers socially. But Steve was a friend of mine on the village streets in the early 60s. He, as a matter of fact, hit town and became instantly known as that guy who looks like Tork, which was my name in those days. I ran across him on the street. I said, I know who you are. You're the kid who looks like me. He said, I know who you are. You're the kid I'm supposed to look like. Anyway, so we cut back again to a couple of years later. And Steve knows this guy, and it turns out to be Bob Rafelson, one of the producers, who says to him, in his own inimitable way, well, we like you a lot, but your hair and teeth are wrong for production. They ain't photogenic. You know anybody who looks like you who's got good hair and teeth? And Steven said, my friend Peter. And so Steven called me and said, go try out for this thing. And I said, yeah, sure, Steve. Yeah, right, instant success. Give me a break. And he said, no, really, try out. All right. So I, took my hard-earned savings, which I'd been making washing dishes at this club in Southern California, about 50 miles south of Hollywood, and took a bus up to Hollywood and back down again and up and down for auditions, and eventually won the part.
What was the audition like?
Well, it started off with just this huge gang of kids in the office. The office had one secretary type, and then two offices, one on either side. You went into whichever one was free next, and if they didn't like you, that was it. If they did like you, then you went into the next guy's office when he was free, and if he liked you, then they sent you to this, they gave you what they called a personality interview. They just had the cameras running on the set of I Dream of Jeannie or something, and they asked you questions. And then if they thought that was actually also a photogenesis test. Were you born in the camera? But after that, then came the regular screen test, which was scripted, and they had a set there and a director, and he said, do this and do that, and don't do this and do this other thing. And they had, by that time, had gotten down to 8 guys, and they divided them up into teams of 2, and each one of them did the screen test with the script and the stage actions. Hey, man, what's really the matter? Oh, I don't know. It's about Celia, Yeah, I know, man, yeah. Like that.
So that was the audition.
That was the whole audition process.
Did they test you for chemistry with each other, since this was a band that was put together by producers?
They made their assumptions and shot. They said, well, we need one of these and 2 from column A and 1 from column B.
Yeah, so what were the types that each of you were supposed to fit?
Well, I actually think that what they didn't just say, actually, we need one of each of these. What they said was, we're going to need a bunch of qualities, and these are pretty much the qualities, and we need them somehow or another combined among these guys. I think basically one of the reasons I was chosen, I can think of 2 good reasons why I was chosen. One is that I had brought that character of the dummy to the auditions, and they needed an odd man out, a guy who was like a little, slightly turned from the other guys. Straight-ahead rock and roll band, and one kind of simpatico, simplicico kind of a guy, and that was my character. And so that was one of the reasons why I was chosen. The other reason I think I was chosen is because I did the screen test in one take. At least I thought it was impressive. I hope they did too. In any case, it was like that. I was the odd man out. Davey was the little British or romantic, and then 2 other guys, one of them light and crazed and the other kind of dark and serious. And so that was the way it was balanced out, I think.
Were you asked to watch Beatles movies or listen a lot to Beatles records to develop the kind of sound and image that they had?
No.
Were you self-conscious of the Monkees being considered to be like a Beatles imitation band?
Well, there was a lot of criticism to that effect, and I think I took it to heart, and now I think I took it to heart too much, because really it was, I think in some ways, Mickey and Davey had a healthier attitude about it as I look back on it now. They didn't go in for that imitation this or organic that. They just read their scripts. They came to the studio and read their parts. And that was all they ever cared about doing. They got give me a part and pay me at the end of the week. That's all. And if I'd had that attitude, I would have been a lot happier. I would have been able to not worry, because I heard a lot of different criticisms, and it all sounded as though it was coming from one seriously important source to me in those days. That was how I was. And I now see that each person had their own little carping to do. For instance, nobody ever said in my knowledge in those days that we were a bunch of talentless actors. Everybody said we were a bunch of talentless musicians, but not talentless actors. Because in Hollywood, we were respected pros doing what we had to do, cranking out this stuff week in and week out. If you got it out, you were a pro. That was all anybody cared about in Hollywood. And so I said, well, at least we had that much respect. I later find out that the struggling New York actors crowd are calling us talentless actors. But what I heard was the struggling musicians crowd in L.A. and all of the would-be goods that are going, well, these guys don't play their own instruments and all that horseradish.
Do you find that the rap has changed about the programs, and so many people look back on it affectionately now as being like a real pop piece from that period?
It's a good question. I don't know whether the rap itself has changed, but I'm hearing more good rap about it, which maybe comes to the same thing. You're laughing because I spilled my coffee.
Because you spilled your coffee, yeah. Did the studio control your personal life or your image? Was it okay to have girlfriends?
Oh, sure.
Was it okay to be seen with them?
It was okay to have sex.
Yeah, you just never know with studios, like how much control they're exerting or what they want you to look like to your
Well,
public.
they wouldn't let us criticize the war in Vietnam.
Really? Did you want to?
Yep. I actually did, to a New York Times reporter, and they asked me very seriously and very strenuously to call her and ask her to withhold that section of the interview. And I did, and she did. She was very kind about it. But it was, I look back on it, and it seems kind of silly, but I think that the whole point of the project was don't make waves. Look like revolutionary, look like something new, but don't make waves. On the other hand, in the experience of an awful lot of our audience, we were something new. So I can't knock that.
Do you think you would have been more of an activist if you weren't part of TV at the time?
I don't know. I never did march. I never did carry a sign. The only thing I ever did was a sit-down strike someplace once. Not much. I never really did get into activism, and I don't know whether it's just because I'm a flat-out coward or because I have some deep understanding of the cosmic truth of the fact that it doesn't do any good or whatever. In whatever case, that's what it is. I don't do it much.
Bob Rafelson, who was one of the producers of the show, is now also known as the director of such films as Five Easy Pieces. Had you kept in touch with him at all?
No.
Did you go to see his other movies, having worked with him?
I happen to have seen some of the other movies. I saw King of Marvin Gardens at one point. Of course, I saw Five Easy Pieces because we were still associated with those guys as that movie was being put together. Easy Rider. And then I saw Five Easy Pieces because it was Jack Nicholson who helped us make the movie Head, the monkey movie. And I think Jack is super. And of course, one of the things is that I have a feeling about Jack because I see the crazy guy that he portrays on screen, and I see him in life, and he's still got that something, out of bounds is still there, and still in his actual character, he is one of the great open-minded, open-hearted sweeties that I know. And to see a man with these seemingly vast differences working and playing these crazed people on screen, and still, the reason that he is as big a star as he is because he does have the capacity to be abstract about his own work, and you should have seen what it was like working with him. He's a great technician, which is one of the great attributes. You can't be a crazy maniac like that and not be a good technician if you want to have a career, because you'll just go out of bounds without any kind of really good viewing. And, wow, how did we get off on that?
Well, did you want to pursue acting after the Monkees?
I didn't care what I did. I'm an entertainer. If I act or play music, or like I'm doing tonight at Godfrey Daniel in Bethlehem, if I do that, or I have a rock band now, it's called the Peter Tork Project, and we'll probably be swinging through here, and we play thumping rock and roll. We just really beat the Jesus out of things and really stomp. And we have a hard time getting people to believe it, because I do my acoustic act, and it depends almost entirely on rapport. And I don't rock out too much, because how much rock and roll can you do on an acoustic guitar or a piano? But I do, so it's a kind of a quietish show. It's a nice, mild show.
What kind of material do you play solo?
Well, I do essentially. Well, it's like there's an overlap. I do a large part of the same material in both shows. I do some old Monkey songs, just because I know people want to hear that kind of stuff, and I do some oldies, 50s rockers. And with the band, then from there on to the more heavy rock and roll, I use the band. The band plays that and rockier stuff. And acoustically, I play that and farther out stuff, more ballads, a J.S. Bach piece on the piano, one, and like that. So it's old tunes. I play some more introspective stuff as an acoustic act.
What kind of music do you listen to when you have time to listen?
Baroque, reggae, current pop from time to time. I don't buy current pop records, but I get them from my family for gifts and so on. I like Men at Work. I got that for Christmas. I thought it was great. That kind of stuff. The Police, good. I like good music in almost every form. About the only kind of music that I really have a very hard time taking is opera and Mozart. For some reason, Mozart, I think, is awful. I just don't know how come he's so revered and so treasured. Out of about every dozen pieces that I hear, I think one is inventive and interesting, and the others seem to me just to be scales with flourishes.
Well, I'll send you all the angry mail when we get it. I'll forward
No,
it to you.
thanks.
Peter Tork is my guest, if you're just joining us, who got started in entertainment very young when he was in the Monkees.
Wait a minute. That's not my start. I was playing in the Village for 2.5 years.
Of course, yeah. Well, yeah. What
made his mark in the entertainment
yes.
industry. You might say that. That would be fair.
What kind of material were you playing in the Village then?
Folk songs, just the old folks, and Blowing in the Wind, and protest songs and folk songs and 5-string banjo stuff.
The word was on the Monkey Show that it was really studio musicians who were doing the instrumental parts while the Monkees were actually doing the singing. Was that true?
First 2 records.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we did a record all by ourselves, almost all by ourselves. And then after that, we went into a mixed mode where there was a professional drummer, and I'd be playing bass, or I'd be playing guitar, and we'd have a professional bass player, or something like that. At the outset, it was, and the thing was that nobody was sure whether we could play. Nobody had any idea of how much time. I mean, they really, when you hire a professional studio musician, you know what you're getting. You know that you can knock off a complete track of 2 tunes in 3 hours, maybe more. You just take them in, put the music in front of them, and hit it, and then say more of this, less of that, and okay, and you got it, and that's the way it goes. And they just didn't know what it would be like with us, and so and because our services were needed most critically for making the TV series, it was just regarded. Also, Donnie Kirshner didn't like to have people who couldn't be told what to do. As a matter of fact, you may have noticed after he and the Monkees parted company, he, deciding that the Monkees were not plastic enough for him, went and did the Archies.
Did he organize them also by auditions?
The Archies? You're kidding.
I don't know the whole folklore of the Archies.
Have you ever seen an Archie comic book?
Yeah. Oh, of course. What am I thinking?
The Archies were those comic book characters.
Right.
And whatever singers were willing to do what Kirshner paid them to do did the records. And after that, they left. There were never any Archies. They never were. Like I said, the Monkees were too real for Don Kirshner.
Do you think of Kirshner as being an absurd character?
Yes.
But powerful.
Well, in his time, he was powerful enough. He just was one of those characters whose setup and system happened to jibe with a commercial demand of the times. I don't think Kirshner knew what he was doing at one level. At another level, he knew perfectly well what he was doing. He listened to music and he created music that he liked, and it sold millions to 13 and 14-year-olds.